I got this table set up too. It's great. I know. Usually you do it. The other chair better.
I'm sorry?
I said, where's the other chair? I'm gonna get that one.
The nice one,
Yeah.
the rolling one.
Yeah, I like the road. Hello, Becky, how are you?
I like on fine.
Good.
No, because I was trying to see how this works, because I was used to that. And this sort of. Yeah, I heard some of that. So,
Well,
oh, I see, okay.
So who's that?
Yeah, it's kind of like closed session.
Right.
No.
time we did, they kind of let us in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, right, when the pandemic started happening, we could come in, but only like, no audience, only George was the only one. Everybody was absent, me, Andrew, and George.
But isn't that when everyone had to go,
Yeah, we were all, everybody else was remote, yeah. And then we decided to go all remote, so it was a lot easier.
sometimes I miss like going remote.
I like going remote a lot. I'm so used to it now, you know. I can go home, you know, get a coffee, you know.
I did it a couple. Like for, I did it for,
Well, and I did a presentation on civil engineering for one of the high schools in El Paso.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a volunteer presentation
Oh,
for higher sound.
it was all remote.
It was all remote, so I had those high school students, I had my, she used to be my principal, one of my assistant principals that I worked with. But, then after I left teaching, she became the assistant principal at one of the high schools.
Oh,
But she was there,
wow.
she was really sweet.
So how are you?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Good, good. You probably want to sit in the dais.
See what?
You remember the beatback,
I
right?
know.
Yeah, so you can sit in the
I'll
dais.
just wait until they get
Okay.
everybody up there.
I knew you remember.
I don't want to be the first, you know, that would be a little presumptuous, right?
Oh, you could be the first, doesn't matter. Because otherwise.
Do they have like electronic, are these
Yeah,
electronic?
you can.
No, wait, no, they turn them around.
No, that's for the county council.
Well, I'll sit right
Yeah.
wherever the head guy sits.
George usually sits there and then everybody else sits where they want.
Do we get little name tags? What the heck?
I know.
I have to bring my own name tag, huh?
Yeah, but everybody knows everybody after a while, so.
Well, I want them to know me right away. I don't want to have after a while.
You should have everybody. We don't do it like that. We don't have special name tags for people we never have. And they do that only for county council and for city council. So I don't think you're the committee.
I'll just wear a big thing.
Wear a big old
I'll
flag.
write it on my head.
And like,
Jim.
they'll know you after a while. It's a real small group.
I know, I've seen them. I attended one.
Oh, good. So, did you attend the Rio Grande Trail thing today?
No.
It was online,
This different.
so discussing about the trail and well, was it Livingston from Southern New Hampshire Trail? Livingston, I don't think John Livingston, that's not it. And then Louis wanted to trek all the way to the trail from beginning to end. And it's not really a trail half of it. And so it's slowly going. They want to have a nonprofit. So nonprofit for the Rio Grande Trail.
You can walk down, you just walk down the river and there's no water. It's just,
They didn't say that, but
yeah.
you could swim sometimes.
It's amazing this town. How could anyone deny climate change?
Yeah.
With all these indicators.
Oh, I know. But that's not all.
I know. You remember that it has dried up many times.
Well, it's on purpose because.
Oh, I know about that. I read, I know about this flowing through 3 weeks and then elephant feud, the diversion to agriculture.
A lot of water is taken up by the.
Oh, Becky.
Yeah, and they're still planting.
I know.
It's just, you know what's going on? It's more sustainable.
But we're some years we're the highest producer of pecans, and then other years we're the second.
Well, we had hazelnuts or filberts in Oregon. And, the thing is, it's a world market, right? We were like $10, $12 a pound. And they were grown 3 miles away from where but you paid a world market price.
Oh, yeah, because see, the other problems with that pecans spot. Maybe the tortillas, now the tortillas, it's on Amador, big tortillas, just serve the con portion.
Also, roasting the chilies.
Oh, yeah,
That comes in.
so usually get a full bag. Half,
Yeah.
full bag.
I can't eat them.
I end up throwing away.
It's just like my recipe. You do that a few times until expiration date.
I've never been a big fan of that.
Piece of cake.
I'm a big fan of water.
Is there a pecking order for
You
what
know,
you
you sit wherever you want to,
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
can I have your first name?
Jim,
Jim, thank you.
you are?
I am Becky Baum, I'm the transcriptionist.
So we
Well, thank you. Somebody will appreciate that. Somebody somewhere.
It did, it took some of my medical plans, but that has been for over years. That's why I ended up shifting and starting to do more of the city gigs. Yeah, a lot of, well, in 2011, I said, well, I'll see where you back, come on out. I still have one medical clock that's hanging in there. I don't have it. Well, I just take notes here, I keep diagram on.
Oh, not a complaint.
It varies.
Like construction. It's a setback. I'm really sorry to hear that. Where do you live? Just north of C Elementary. Oh, on the street? Okay, this is. Yeah, yeah, I'm looking at it.
You don't have to.
Do you want to know what your setback is?
It's okay.
Well, you're the same thing, Andrew. I like this chair better. I like these chairs better.
Wait, have you tried to read the ordinance?
Yeah.
That's why I have a question. Because you weren't able to navigate it? No, the sections that I need are in multiple places. Or I mean, the verbiage on it.
I'm Jim.
Hi, Jim. Jack. I met you last Thursday at the gravel ride.
Right, oh, yeah, right. I like the visor on your helmet.
Oh, gotta
You need
extend
a
it.
velvet visor here.
Son's trying to kill me. I'm Rod.
Hi, Rob. Good to meet you. One of my favorite places is Juan and Claudia. Do you know them?
No, it's a pretty new place.
That's, yeah, about a year. They're across, you know where they are.
I know where they are.
Stop by there, he's a great guy.
Yeah, I've met him, but there's so many new places.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of coffee places, so that's kind of nice, espresso. So, that was a great event, I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Show pictures. I have friends in
We wish.
Yeah, right. Hi, George.
You have one. You have one. Do you need one?
There's a pecking order that they take.
Okay.
You have to use the gavel much?
I switched in my head.
First time I've noticed it.
No, the packet.
No. And these are live mics. Do we have to push something to make them work?
They're on, so the green is on,
They're always on?
yeah. So you just need to point them at you. They can be turned off, but the
Do we
green light
have
shows that they're on.
Wi-Fi access?
Well, the county has the public.
Is there a password?
You can sign in for 24-hour access.
Okay.
Hi. So, there you are, in the middle. You need to sign the roster.
Problem, we can't fix it now. It's over.
Look at that.
I guess I hadn't even thought about that.
How fancy.
Well, actually, no, it wouldn't be for me. Oh, wait, you're not talking about the TVS business. Oh, right, sorry. Okay, yes, gotcha, yes. Okay, then yes, it's that.
How's it going? Hi, Ashley. Hi, haven't seen you in a while. Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Ashley.
Hello, Jim. Oh,
How you doing? Doing well, thank you. And I want to, we will do minimum. Or minimum. Yeah, minimum. In both directions.
We could expect that.
Right.
would you like a chair? Yeah, let me just slide that down.
All right, thank you.
So which one is it? Diana County staff?
It's gonna have to lock the front door.
Guest.
And are we expecting, McComo, Skeleton, and Waller
Skeleton, no.
at 5?
Yeah, it's a public meeting, so how can you lock the door?
I don't have a password.
You have a chair?
Right here.
All right. Well, then we're in business.
2 more minutes to go. According to my watch.
Do you have passwords? Guest portal?
What are you trying to say? You
Wi-Fi.
don't need Wi-Fi.
Look up information when people say something that's wrong.
Always on. Hi.
How you doing?
I'm great.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I know, I just got off a bike ride with a whole bunch of children. It was hot, for sure.
Oh, you sit there, Andrew, or
Are you?
how you doing?
Not enough chairs up there.
No, but I think this is hot. So we have to turn it off for those Put it away from me. Don't say anything loud. No.
Do your thing, do your thing. Dominic, you need to go watch the front door, I'm sorry.
No.
Andrew?
How about 1 minute, George?
Yep.
Do you have any idea, are you coming to the bylaws rewrite committee?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how many people we have?
3 from the policy board and 2 from the other one, so 4, 5, 6, 7, and staff, 8, 9, 10, 10,
And me
11.
and you, are we
We're part of the
4?
4,
Okay, so 11. Okay. I was just trying to
the
see.
TAC,
decide
the
which
BPAC,
Oh, we have a full house.
and then
And
the board.
staff, the 4 staff members. Just trying to get a head count for the policy, the bylaws.
It is now 5 o'clock. Okay. Are we gonna wait a little bit?
Okay, we're at 5 o'clock, so call the May 17th meeting of the Mesilla Valley MPO Bicycle and Pedestrian Facilities Advisory Committee to order. Can we have a roll call for establish a quorum?
I
And
will give-
also, when you're answering, could you Could you either announce the positions or ask the members?
I could announce
Okay,
positions.
because we have some new members, so I want to make sure.
Yes,
that
ma'am.
everybody knows
Yes,
who
sir.
belongs before.
Ashley Curry, Vice Chair. Andrew
Present.
Bec- Andrew Bicomo, Pedestrian Community Citizen Representative.
Present.
Albert Casillas, a DAC Planning.
Present.
Marcia Davis, DAC Citizen.
Present.
Jim Wilcox, Bicycle Community Representative.
Present.
Harold Love, NMDOT.
Present.
Jack Kirby, Nmsu.
Present.
Rod McGillivray, Town of Mesilla.
Present.
Daniel Bandarama, City of Las Cruces Public Works.
Present.
George Pearson, Chair and Citizens Rep.
Present.
Okay, and we have a quorum, of course. We got everybody.
Okay, next we have approval of the agenda. Are there any suggested changes? Hearing none, I'd hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Ashley Curry, so moved.
Jack Kirby, second.
We have a motion and a second to accept the agenda as presented. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that item is approved. Approval of the minutes for April 19th. Is there any discussion on the minutes? I'll hear a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So move Harold Love.
I
Andrew
second.
Bencomo, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes of April 19th are approved.
And this time I'd like to introduce Mr. Andrew Ray to discuss the UPWP.
Michael, we
No,
have a
we've got
public comment.
Oh, we got, excuse me.
I was getting it right this time.
Oh,
Right. Well spoken, Mr. Chair.
I was the one that made, okay.
I usually skip those. So public comment is our next item. Do we have any members of the public that wish to comment at this point? Come forward and.
Now, we'd like to
No.
hear. No?
Got one.
Robert
Oh,
wants to.
Robert's coming, okay. We
Robert
can
wants to
miss
come up.
that.
Good evening, members of the BPAC and Chair. Just wanted to give you all a couple of updates. This Friday, May 20th, from 7 to 9 a.m., we're going to have a simple Bike to Work Day event in front of the west side of City Hall. So I just wanted to announce that. The other thing is we're continuing to do what we call our Heart and History walks in downtown Las Cruces. We're looking to update our map and do something similar to what the DLCP has. If you go to the Downtown Las Cruces Partnership website, they have a really nice map, and it's got like a QR code that you can scan. So we're looking to possibly update our map to have something a little nicer like this. This Friday's walk at noon is going to be our last noontime walk, and then starting June, July, and August, we'll be starting at 7 a.m., so we avoid a little bit of the heat of the day. So if anybody's interested, these walks are open to the public. It's not just for city staff, and the only thing you need to do is just sign a waiver releasing the city if something happens. But anyways, just wanted to let you all know about those things going on, and thank you very much.
Okay, on the Bike to Work for the city, it's from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, it'll be from 7 to 9, and we'll also have, I'm going to have a little sign-in sheet and some comment sheets so people can provide feedback on what they like and they don't like or want to improve with regard to biking in the city. So a little.
Where does it start?
Well, there is no formal route. It's just going to be for whoever wants to show up. Just show up at the west side of City Hall. Even if you don't bike but would like to bike more, you can get some information, and there'll be a few giveaway items and snacks and fruit and that sort of thing. So, and if anybody has any more questions, you're free to reach out to me at the city. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So seeing no other public, we'll go on to the action item.
Yes, at this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Andrew Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to ask, does everyone have the PowerPoint available on your screen? Because okay, there it is on the big board. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the BPAC. My name is Andrew Ray, MPO officer for the record. I'm here today to request action by the BPAC on the 2023, federal fiscal year 2023 to 2024 Unified Planning Work Program. The Unified Planning Work Program is the biennial document that outlines the transportation planning activities and budget that will be utilized by MPO staff for MPO operations over the course of the next 2 years. The the UPWP is required to be consistent with the vision laid out in the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. The UPWP contains a fiscal budget as well as a specific list of work tasks to be accomplished during the stated time period, and also lists out associated agencies outside the MPO that will be assisting the MPO in the completion of the specific task. The current the current UPWP under which we're operating is the federal fiscal year 2021 to 2022 UPWP, and that one went into effect on October the 1st. This UPWP that we're proposing must be adopted by June of this year and would go into effect on October 1st of 2020. There are only a couple of significant changes that we're proposing in this draft of the UPWP. The most significant one is we are creating a discrete task item to cover what has become the annual process for dealing with the calls for projects that we have been starting to steadily do year by year. It's become such a significant call on staff's time in the first half of every year that we decided that it was appropriate to go ahead and give it its own work task. There will be some adjustments listed in the draft, pulling time away from some of the other task items that we had kind of used to cover that before. We are also creating a multimodal safety integration work task, which is to more clearly demonstrate our responsiveness to new federal requirements as laid out in the bipartisan infrastructure bill. It is not in any way changing anything that MPO staff is doing. It is just highlighting our compliance with the federal requirements. We have received our funding levels for federal fiscal year 2023. Those are reflected in the draft that is before you this evening. We also, per the usual precedent, have used that 2023 baseline as the baseline for 2024. It does represent a 12% increase, and there's an error on the slide. It does represent a 12% increase from federal fiscal year 2022, which is the year that we're currently in. So the committee will remember there was about 11% drop in our overall budget for this year as opposed to 21. So now we're back up to being 12% up for federal fiscal year 23. I do not anticipate that the federal fiscal year 2024 dollar amounts are going to remain the same. But that is just the accepted practice. We will be amending that in due course at the end of federal fiscal year 23 when we receive the 24 amounts. Staff does request the BPAC to recommend approval of this draft UPWP to the policy board this evening. We will be bringing it before the policy board for consideration at their June 8th meeting. That concludes my presentation, and I'll stand now for any questions.
Okay, I have 3 or so. On in the packet, the UPWP wasn't page numbered. Is that intentional? Or is that?
That is intentional, Mr. Chair, because because of the way that this thing has to kind of be cobbled together, and we're actually having some, sorry, I have to air dirty laundry. We're having some software problems within the city right now. We're having some licensing issues between our PDF softwares that we have access to. We are not page paginating it until after we have the final adoption.
Okay.
So that in case there's any other edits, it doesn't mess up the entire format of the entire document. We have to repatch it together.
So that's just something that's coming. In page 44 of the packet, you've got one of the charts. There was I didn't write down what the title was, but the trail usage reporting you have as a task twice a year. Is that, I don't remember having seen those. Is that something that's being done? Are those reports around?
Mr. Chair, that is an item that's been of long standing in the UPWP. It's not one that we've really been specifically doing per se, but it's something that we intend to start performing on a more regular basis going forward.
Because it's been quite some time since I've
Yes,
seen
it has been. Touche, Mr. Chair.
On the same chart, there's a place for airport runway counts, and they were completely blank. Is that something that's coming, or why is that one there?
Mr. Hume, the current city airport administrator, is interested in building up the relationship between the airport and the MPO. We spoke about this. The FAA and FHWA and FTA sort of exist in completely different realms, and so some of you who've been with us for a long time will remember we did used to report on airport matters on a more consistent basis, but when the state required us to shift over to the ESTIP, there was also transition going on in Las Cruces Airport, and that relationship kind of more or less broke down completely. We are looking at trying to rebuild and expand that relationship again at the behest of Mr. Hume. So in a way, that's kind of a placeholder just to see what may or may not develop, because the FAA is not going to change their complete lack of interest in MPOs. This is something more local. Okay. And so we're trying to kind of figure out a way to document the establishment of that.
Okay. On page 47 of the packet, you had one of the entries was BPAC meetings, and the checkboxes didn't seem to match with the months that we had.
Oh, well, that would probably be an error, Mr. Chair, and we will get that corrected.
And the last one is probably also similar to the page numbering. Appendix C is empty. I assume that gets something.
That one is intentionally blank right now because there's no documentation to fill Appendix C. That is where the adopting and amending resolutions go, so there's no content for it as of right now.
Any other committee members have questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, it's Ashley Curry. I think just the same comment that I made at the TAC, just to change biannual to biennial, because you currently have it twice a year instead of once every 2 years. So you're doing 4 times as much work by the way it's written.
Thank you. We did forget to make that change.
Any other committee comments?
Mr. Chair.
Andrew?
Andrew Bencomo. So, and this has really not, it's a side note to the approval of this, which I support. You had talked about the highlighting of the call for projects and things like that, creating that portion of it. And then also, George has brought up the trail monitoring, those type of things. Is there any thought moving forward to trying to add staff to MPO to be more productive in these type of things and be more proactive in moving towards those?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Bencomo, no. As of right now, additional staffing resources for the MPO is not on the table.
Okay, not on the table because
the city's not going to give us more staff.
Okay, so you've asked?
I haven't asked, but I know that that's what the answer would be. This year's budget, just to, if you'll indulge me, Mr. Chair, there were a lot of staffing requests that were made by the various city departments to the city administration, city council. Most of those were denied. We only got less than half of the staffing requests that were presented. So I know that a request would not be accepted by city administration.
Okay, thank you.
If there aren't any other comments or amendments, I'll hear a motion to recommend approval of this to the policy board.
Ashley Curry, so moved.
Albert Garcia, second.
We have a motion and a second to recommend approval of the UPWP to the policy board. On favor, aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that item is approved. Now we have a discussion item, MPO bike route map presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very pleased at this time to introduce Ms. Katerina Provenghi.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Katerina Provenghi. In the past few months, we, the Mesilla Valley MPO staff, drove and inspected roads within the MPO planning area for any signage and any physical evidence of bike lanes. All the data, this included Las Cruces, Mesilla, and Nmsu campus, and throughout the Doña Ana County. Data was collected on a physical map, and then it was later transferred to using digitally to ArcGIS, and we used ArcGIS Pro. Throughout the area, we noticed there were really just 5 categories of bicycle facilities, and that included the buffered bike lane, unbuffered bike lane, shoulder, share the road, and multi-use paths. So this is basically how we classified them and what they look like, just to give you an idea. I'm sure you're aware, but just for a review, we have the buffered bike lane that has a space that's between the bike lane and the road. We have unbuffered bike lanes that are just a line and with usually a sidewalk or gutter that is next to the bike lane. We also have the shoulder. It's also separated by just a line, but on the other side you have undeveloped land. You have the share the road where drivers and bicyclists have to yield to one another and of course share the road with one another. And we also have the multi-use paths where we have not just cyclists, but we also have pedestrians and skateboarders, skaters, whatever, whatever anyone enjoys. And so those are the 5. So the color scheme was chosen on this map. The color scheme was chosen with the publication of the map in mind. So with that, we specifically, it was chosen to specifically accommodate for anyone with color blindness. So color blindness, if someone's cone cells in their eyes, in their retinas, do not work normally, 2 distinctly different colors will appear the same to them. And so if you look here, we have basically colors of the rainbow. And if you look over here, these are the 3 main different kinds of color blindness. We have red and orange, and they look fairly similar across the board. Yellow and green look fairly similar. And of course, blue and purple, they look fairly similar. And so the best way to ensure that someone with color blindness can read this map is to use a combination of complementary colors and gradients. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the color wheel. We have 1, 2, 3, our primary colors, red, yellow, blue. And then we have our secondary colors, what you get, as you learned in kindergarten, what you get when you combine the primary colors. Now, when those 2 are together, a primary color and a secondary color next to it, they may appear the same, like I said in the previous slide. So these are complementary colors. They're the ones that are opposite to one another on the color wheel. And then we pick 2 colors, and then we use a gradient. So going from very bright to a very strong color to a much lighter color. And on this map, we went ahead and used a blue and orange hue for our map. On the map, and you will see it's on the next slide, but just to go over it, what was labeled on the map, we have the different types of facilities, so all 5 that I mentioned previously, and then you'll see that I used different shades of blue, and I used 2 different shades of orange, just to make sure I was aware. And I did review this with 2 individuals who do have 2 different kinds of color blindness, and they said they were able to view it and see it, no problem, without any difficulty. So we also have the roads, parks, the Las Cruces public schools, and then of course we have our 4 main areas in our area that are labeled in the background, and then of course the railroad. So this was the result. of our bike lane map. This is what is physically there and physically marked. It does have signage, it has markings on the roads. It doesn't have to have both, but as long as there's some kind of indication that there is a bike lane there or a multi-use path there, that is what is marked. And this is as of right now. This is present. And so in order to organize it, I went ahead and put Las Cruces in the middle. We have 3 different insets just to make it easier to see. We have North Valley and Picacho Hills that I zoomed in on. We also have East Mesa, and we have Soledad Canyon. I also included South Valley. So yeah, that was on the map. So those are the 3 ones that I zoomed in on, just to make it easier. Now, looking at the statistics of what was available, what was there, we have just under 200 miles of bicycle facilities. The most common one being the unbuffered bike lanes. That was the one with just the line that separates the road and the bike lane. We did have about the same amount of the shoulder and the share the roads. And then the multi-use paths, we had a fair amount. The ones that we had the least amount of were the buffered bike lanes, as you can see in this graph. And so different ways we can utilize this data. Basically, utilitarian and recreational cyclists can use this to kind of plan out their route. We can use this to promote tourism. Ourselves, the MPO staff, we can use this for facility planning or anything that. And then we have also facility connectivity planning. In case there are any gaps, we need to bridge the gap. That's something to look at because that was something that was noticed when we were researching and mapping out all the bike lanes. Anything with that's bicycle-friendly community applications, any programs that can be planned with that. Also, safe routes to school can also utilize this data. And with that, Mr. Chair, at this time, MPO staff would like to request a motion for a recess for the committee to inspect the map.
Okay, I have a couple of questions for you first on your presentation.
Okay.
On the road types, did you measure, on like one roadway segment, what the road that I'm thinking of in particular is Traverse, where one side has a bike lane and the other side is share the road. Mm-hmm. Did you measure that separately, or how, the total lane mileage?
Oh, I measured it separately, or we measured it separately, we made sure that both, because it is 2 separate facilities that are present, we made sure that they were both marked on the map.
Okay.
And
so
then
the 200 miles, then that's actually 100 miles of roadway?
Correct, but it was, that was based on whatever was available. So if you do have 2 different types of bicycle facilities that are there, we went ahead and just measured them. I guess they were measured twice because we used GIS to kind of calculate the total length of all the bicycle facilities.
Okay. And the share the road, is that a minimum of a 14-foot lane width?
Yes.
Okay.
At least that's what we observed when.
Right, because that's pretty much the minimum. If it's any narrower than 14 foot, it's not a share the road. It's just it's not a bicycle facility.
Correct.
Anybody else have questions?
Mr. Chair, this is Jim Wilcox. May I ask a question?
Okay.
Have you considered identifying those roads which would not be appropriate for cyclists, or at least to warn cyclists, because they are high traffic and high danger? I've seen maps like this before where they identify a main thoroughfare, say, as red or some color indicating high danger.
I'm going to forward that to Andrew.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Wilcox, Andrew Ray for the record. We are explicitly not doing things like that for this map. This map is to be only a representation of the facilities that are on the ground.
Right. The previous iteration was I forgot what we called it.
We don't want to talk about the previous iteration, Mr. Chair.
So And, because can be used as a route finding map, but what about the problems where or is this something that we should talk about in RISA with connecting where the gaps are? How do we solve the gaps?
Mr. Chair, the intention of this map is not to be a remedy to that particular issue other than implicitly calling attention to where those gaps are, I'd have to say.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Is there a digital version of this that people can access if they were new to town and just, would they have to find the physical map to be able to use it?
Not yet, but that is something that is something that is in the plan, but nothing is available yet.
I'm not sure how it works, but is there any way to hook that up with Google Maps so that Google Maps identifies it? I'm not quite sure how that gets done.
The routes can be turned into KMZ file, KML files for Google Maps if we decide to do it. So it's definitely a possibility.
That's great. Thanks. Looks really good, by the way.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Andrew?
Andrew Bencomo for the record. So I had a couple of questions. The shoulders, how did you decide what was actually a shoulder? Is there a specific, like if it's beyond a certain narrowness, it's not going to be considered a shoulder, it's just kind of the side of the road? Or how was there a way to delineate that?
We did notice that there were portions in North Valley where it did go into it like a foot width, but they were so small. But like the majority of the time you would see 2 to 3 feet of shoulder. And so basically, if it was past that, wider than that, then we would count that as a shoulder.
Okay, so you did kind of look at the widths here and there, not necessarily
That
very specific, like you measured it or anything, but you kind of took that into account.
It was a combination of that, and then there was also pretty much always a sign that said shoulder, or there was some kind of signage that stated that.
Okay. And then similar to the question that was just asked, I mean, when you open maps on your phone and you try to find a route somewhere, it'll ask you if you're walking, biking, or driving. So how do we get this information into that is the question, I think. It's already existing. We just need to figure out how we get our information into that, and whether that would be through the MPO or maybe some other, through the GIS department or whatever. And then also, as far as the wayfinding, maybe a partnership in some way, shape, or form with Parks and Recreation. I had spoken with Sonia a little while back, and they had actually put in for a grant for a wayfinding system. Whether it happened or not, I don't know. I don't think they got the grant, but maybe that kind of partnership with Parks and Rec for a wayfinding system might be the way to go. So just a comment. So thank you.
Okay. So we need a motion to recess?
Ashley Curry, so moved.
Andrew Bencomo, second.
We have a motion to go into recess. Without opposition, we'll go into recess.
Recess.
Thank you for everything y'all are doing.
Thank you, too, for coming. See ya. Come by anytime you like.
But it's gonna be a dirt hill.
Oh, you want to do that? Okay, you already done the bylaws, well.
Well, that's part of this, that's
Okay.
basically the staff update, truth be told.
So I'll call us back to order. Looks like everybody's ready. So do we have any more discussion on?
Yes, Mr. Chair. This is Andrew Ray for the record. We will take the information that we received during the recess as everyone was reviewing the maps. We will incorporate the necessary changes into the document. We do intend to bring this back for another round of review once those things are done. Because this document is going to have a hard copy existence, we are preparing what I'll call back matter for the flip side of the document. So we are at best several months away from this being ready to be published, but we will be working diligently on this, and we will give the BPAC another opportunity to look at this and provide input before it goes to publication.
So just the previous version that shall not be mentioned, that was.
That doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, but it's been 10 years.
It's been depersoned.
I have one, so I can show you, but. Also, I guess I do have maps, bicycle maps from different jurisdictions, like Albuquerque and Santa Fe and different places.
Okay, I mean, we'll take a look at them. I don't know that we're really philosophically going to be changing too much about this one, but certainly we'll take a look at other ideas and options.
Mr. Chair, this is Jim Wilcox for the record. May I ask a question?
Sure.
I've already forgotten the name of the path, but the path that crosses over by the railroad tracks, outflow channel, and there's signage that says you're not allowed to cross there. It's private property. There's ordinance that's cited. And on this map, it was indicated through a gap in the lines. I think that if you had somebody from another city come to visit, they wanted to use this map, I think it's good to warn them about that particular situation. I don't know how you would do that, but I know that it does say on that signage, it does say that you're supposed to go around and use a different road that's a legal crossing. So that's one of my concerns about this particular map. And that I do want to go on the record as stating that I think it is our duty to identify high risk. It doesn't have to necessarily be high risk roads, but high traffic roads without possible bike facilities. I think that way we not only help protect people who might try to ride on those, but also it helps us from a legal standpoint, and I would recommend that be a consultation, including that in this particular map.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Wilcox, legal has explicitly barred information of that nature going on that map. It's in fact a legal liability if information of that nature goes onto the map in the eyes of our attorneys. So we did have a previous iteration of a map that had information of that nature on it, and that was part of exactly what was the problem with it. So I can assure you that is their position, and we will not be including information of that nature on the map. As far as highlighting things like the outfall channel railroad crossing problem, we will investigate means of trying to display that particular issue. I can't promise that we'll be able to incorporate anything, but we'll see if we can come up with a solution of how to display that on the map as a warning to the user.
Well, thank you for that information about legal. I still want to go on the record because I've seen too many other cities that have chosen to include that information. Maybe we're pioneers in that, and other cities will follow our suit and remove those kinds of identifiers for high traffic, low facility options. So we'll see how that goes in the future.
Okay, any other comments? We ready to move on? So committee and staff comments, local projects update. NMSU, do you have any project updates for us?
This is Jack Kirby with NMSU. We have no project updates today.
Town of Mesilla?
Nothing to report.
Doñana County?
Up Chair Albert Casillas here. No, nothing to report today.
City of Las Cruces?
City of Las Cruces, nothing to report.
So we're at NMDOT.
Harold Love, NMDOT, just a couple of project updates. We have I-25 around the Radium Springs area where we're doing a pavement preservation project from the 14-mile marker to the 24-mile marker, and that is ongoing. And then on Stern Drive, we have our maintenance forces out there doing erosion control from the 4-mile marker to the 6-mile marker, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. MPO staff update?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. MPO staff update is we are, a week from tomorrow, we will be having the first bylaw subcommittee meeting. MPO staff is very much looking forward to finally getting some work done on that process. We hope to be starting a process of presenting the draft to the committees in August. But I reserve the right to postpone that should circumstances dictate. But we are finally getting started on work next week.
Okay, thank you. Next, now we're at committee member update. I guess I have a couple of questions. I guess I could have inserted it during the local project update, but for the city, on the GO-bound projects, do you have any information on status, on how close they are to completing that?
No, this is Daniel Balderrama with the city. I do not have any.
Okay, I guess if you, that's going to be a question that we're going to ask. And related to that, then I think the engineering department would be involved at the, where I think it's the Mesilla Drain, no, it's the Armijo lateral project where it crosses Hoagland. Looks like there's signage put up to put in a crosswalk, but there's no painting. Is that something that's pending?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. On Town of Mesilla comment, the Rio Grande Trail Commission met today, and they were talking about designating different routes. And it sounds like, and it won't happen until it's done, but the connection from the end of the La Llorona that connects up to the Calle del Norte, you might look at adding that as part of the Rio Grande Trail all the way down to the end of where that trail goes now by Calle de Oeste. They were looking at their process on how they would add routes to the trail. And so there's routes along the contiguous trail itself along the river, but there's also designated routes that lead into local communities. So that's something that maybe the town wants to look at some point. And for NMDOT, if you looked at the minutes, we had talked about the frontage road striping on US 70 and making sure that you look at doing appropriate lane striping for, especially where right turn only lanes are. I think we've talked about that before, so I think you are going to be looking at that.
Yes, Chair. In fact, we're looking to try to do a presentation in front of this committee about what we're proposing as far as restriping bike lanes on that.
Very good. And then May is Bike Month, so we had several events already. The Family Bike Fiesta was at the end of April. We had the Bike to School Days events at lots of elementary schools. Maybe Ashley will talk more about that. First weekend in May, we had a bike swap and also the Cyclofem ride that I didn't participate in, but I heard had a decent turnout. Coming up, we still have the Ride of Silence tomorrow in Mesilla at the Mesilla Plaza. People gather at 6:15. The Bike to Work Day event at City Hall that Robert mentioned earlier at 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock in the morning. Velocrucis is sponsoring a meet and greet at 5 p.m. on Friday, the 20th, at the end of Bike to Work Day at Little Toad Creek. And there is the possibility of Downtown Las Cruces Partnership doing a ribbon cutting for some of the bike racks that they've installed downtown. I just have one email on that, so that's tentative right at this moment. And then on Saturday, May 21st, May 21st is the Mayor's Bike Ride starting at City Hall, about a 5-mile ride. Last time we did this, we had like 60 people, but that was in 2019. We had a pandemic gap, of course. So looking forward to that event and hope anybody that can participate will show up for that. Committee members, Ashley?
Mr. Chair, thank you. This is Ashley Curry, and as Mr. Chair mentioned already, it's the school district has been very busy with bike events. We have had so far 146 kids bike to school for National Bike to School Week at a total of 21 schools. 22 schools. We have our final bike to school celebration at Tombaugh Elementary this coming Thursday, so we don't have a final number yet on our total year. The Family Bike Fiesta, we had almost 300 people participate. We had 130 students. We had 99 parents, 50 to 60 volunteers. We had repaired 70 bicycles, and we had 23 on the community ride. The Cyclofem, I think we had about 20 people participate in that. We've also had bike clubs at 2 of our schools after school that have been very well attended, and the kids would like me to tell you thank you very much for the multi-use trails. They very much appreciated having those multi-use trails. So, and I think finally, our bike club at MacArthur Elementary bike to the county for the county proclamation last week, and so that was really fun that they biked here from the elementary school. I think that's about it for the school district.
Any other committee member comments?
Mr. Chair. Way down
Hiding
here.
behind the screen. Andrew.
Andrew Bencomo for the record. I had a question on the, for NMSU. A while back, there was a presentation, or we were showing something where NMSU was, I think, maybe putting in for a grant or something for a multi-use path from Arrowhead and right by Burrell. And it was going to go down Arrowhead to Sam Steele and then down. Is that still in the works? Do you know?
My understanding is it's still part of the master planning, but the funding's not in place to have a timeline for construction on that.
Okay, so just in the master plan for now. Okay.
Wasn't there a TAP application for that?
That was a separate project.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You haven't heard anything about the TAP application?
I have, but I don't believe the public announcement of, well, Ms. Curry, she did announce hers, so yes, NMSU was awarded the Arroyo Trail. Actually, all 3 of our TAP applications from last year were awarded, so NMSU was awarded that. But that's on the complete opposite side of campus from what Mr. Bencomo was talking about. It's a different project.
Okay. Any other members?
Sorry, I wasn't finished.
Are you still?
So, and then also you had mentioned the Rio Grande Trail meeting and NMSU designating perhaps that trail that leads into Mesilla. Same thing for City of Las Cruces. The outflow channel leads directly into town, leads directly to an Albertsons grocery store, so people can resupply if they're doing the trail, things like that. So those are thank you for bringing that up, George, very important to make sure that communities along the Rio Grande Trail are making contact and letting them know that they have facilities available to bring people into our communities. That's part of the outdoor recreation plan and process for this, is to get communities involved in that. So great thing. Also, I just wanted to give kudos for NMDOT. I was road riding down Picacho a while back, and the shoulders there were a mess. And then later riding up the frontage roads towards NASA Road, and within the first probably 2 to 3 miles of inside the city limits, absolutely unusable. For a lot of people were driving in and out of there causing issues. It wasn't because of NMDOT. Anyway, made contact. I think Jesus Torres is his name. Great response. The crews got out there right away and did cleanup. So just kudos to NMDOT for a quick follow-up on those, being able to use those bike lanes. So thank you very much.
Okay, do we have anybody else?
Mr. Chair, this is Jim Wilcox for the record. May I introduce myself?
Sure.
I wanted to let people know, because I'm a new member here, that I'm Jim Wilcox, and I'm a transplant here from Eugene, Oregon. And I'm really pleased to be able to come to this community and work towards the advancement of active transportation. I've found this community to be very supportive of that. And I also wanted to let people know that a op-ed I wrote was published in the May 13th Las Cruces Bulletin. I can leave it for the record in case we want to keep that as a record. But if anybody wants to read it, it's about active transportation, specifically bicycling. And then I also wanted to bring to the attention of the members of a recent decision from the administration at the federal level to add $5 billion in aid to cities to promote traffic safety. So I'm really looking forward to those funds being channeled down to the local level, and I'm really enthused by the people here and what their energies are dedicated to, and I want to thank everybody for the time that they put into this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? I'll hear a motion. No, public comment. Last chance for public comment. Seeing none, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Ashley Curry, so moved.
Albert Casillas, second.
We have a motion and second to adjourn without objection. We're adjourned. Thank you.